Hello, good morning, or good afternoon. My name is Sofia Trincado, and I will be starting us off with our divorce and romantic relationships presentation. Besides myself, the other members of this group are Gabrielle Diaz, Natalie Estevez, Madeline Garcia, Roberto Garcia, and Anastasia Mears. So just to give a brief overview as to what will be the content of this presentation, so what this presentation will consist of and cover more in depth, we will be discussing divorce, its rates and its causes. That will be led by myself, Sofia Trincado. We will also be discussing romantic relationships, what constitutes as a romantic relationship, and that will be led by Natalie Estevez. We'll also go into the large demographic of divorces, which is our baby boomers. So what exactly is a baby boomer? Why are they the largest percentage to be divorced? That will be discussed by Anastasia Mears. We will also be discussing positive psychology and influences on relationships. So how we can implement positive psychology in marriage couples and what intervention we would like to be using to counsel these marriages. That will be led by Roberto Garcia. We will go into the possible benefits of divorce, so how we can look at divorce as a positive thing for these couples, and that will be led by Gabrielle Diaz. And lastly, we will finish off with a interactive activity, which will be led by Madeline Garcia to quiz you on your knowledge that was covered in this presentation. Our table of contents is just an organized and ordered view of our content of this presentation slide. So this is just going to go into detail as to what order we will be proceeding this presentation, as well as a brief summary as to what each topic will discuss. We will begin with our divorce rates and its causes, which will be followed by our romantic and relationship section, which will then be followed by our baby boomers topic, then by our positive psychology and influences on relationship section, which will then be closely followed by our possible benefits of divorce. And lastly, we will end with an interactive activity. So just to reintroduce myself, my name is Sofia Trincado, and I will begin with divorce rates and causes, summary and statistics. This section I will be discussing what divorce is, what it entails, what are the rates of divorces, and what are usually the causes that lead to these divorces. So to begin, we're going to be doing just a brief definition of divorce. So divorce is the legal separation of a married couple. So again, just to reiterate, divorce can only happen if the married couple is legally married. So there's a marriage certificate that states that they are married, and it is by law. If they are living together or just dating for a very long time and have a family and decide to separate, that is not considered a divorce, again, unless they are married legally. A question that may commonly arise is, how common is divorce? Does divorce happen often? Is it just a small percentage of those being divorced? We all know people that are divorced. I grew up knowing my friends' parents who were divorced, family members who are divorced. And just to put into perspective, around 50% of marriages end in divorce. So that's half of marriages. So if you are in a room with 10 married people, you can guesstimate that about 5 of those married couples are divorced. Because again, it's half of marriages that end in divorce. There are many reasons as to why a married couple can decide to terminate their relationship legally, but the two main causes that we are going to be discussing are dissatisfaction and conflict. So dissatisfaction can just mean that one or both partners are just no longer satisfied in the relationship. They start to feel that disconnect. They don't feel the chemistry that they once did. The intimacy is dwindling, or there's no intimacy whatsoever. This can be physical or mental intimacy, or they just simply fall out of love and they no longer want to be with their partner. Another cause of divorce, or the other main cause of divorce, is conflict. So conflict in relationships can just be arguments, disagreements, verbal altercations, your partner just not being faithful and no longer committing to the marriage, financial issues, which can create a huge burden in relationships and a lot of stress, and then just issues in communication. The communication is no longer there, and it's just difficult to go on if that communication is no longer present.
Hi, my name is Natalie Estevez, and I will be discussing romantic relationships. I'm not necessarily referring to the characters and actors in the movie The Notebook or other Nicholas Sparks written novels. I'm referring to realistic romantic relationships and the characteristics of people in these relationships, the behavior of the people in the relationships, and what differentiates them from unhealthy relationships. It's clear to say that a romantic relationship isn't like a one-time fling. The intentions of people seeking romantic relationships or getting into them is typically to have something more stable and durable, and perhaps lead to things such as long-term relationships or even marriage. Within these relationships, there is great commitment, and this causes some stability and durability within the relationship. These relationships are also defined by the comfort and security that the commitment brings about to the individuals. A couple engaging in a romantic relationship may not benefit from playing games like telephone, where people give out information and then another person translates the information or adds on something, takes away something. So at the end of the day, the information that gets to the last person is typically not very reliable or very true. So excellent communication is very important, because listening and seeking understanding is going to really help couples versus them finding out information that they didn't know through other sources. And there will also be interventions to help improve communication later throughout the slides. Apart from communication, honesty and loyalty present are very important, being that it's basically an extension of communication, and the partners can talk about very difficult things regardless if they may think it can anger the other partner. This will help the communication as well by not having any hidden information. Respect. I'm not really talking about the RESPCT song, but I guess you can say that as well. And very important, being that regardless of one's own emotions and reasoning, one has to make their own conscious decision to respect their partner, so that it doesn't lead to them engaging in emotionally or physically abusive behavior that brings about a lot more issues in a relationship. Companionship is another characteristic that is relevant in romantic relationships. This is where couples spend time together and get to know each other better, trust one another, and sexual desires arise in this area as well. So sometimes people that are just interested in the temporary and crazy passion involved, because they think it's not going to last, tend to just want a companionship separately with no romantic relationship involved so that there's no hurt and pain, although it is a myth that this passion can be very temporary. It can translate and even evolve within the relationship. Communal orientation and selflessness is also another characteristic, and researchers have said that this can help maintain intimacy in couples by showing the other person in the relationship how much you care for them and how you can be selfless by setting your interests aside. Compromise is also very important. In compromising, you sacrifice some things for the other person, which is also part of being selfless. And by doing so, this maintains the balance of power amongst couples. That way, there's no argumentation and other negative aspects that may be involved within one person having more power in the relationship.
In the following slides, I will be educating you all on the baby boomer generation. That is the generation of the baby boom and the period of the highest known divorce rates. The baby boomer generation, sometimes called boomers, are the demographic group following the silent generation and preceding Generation X. Baby boomers were born between 1947 to 1957, which was during the post-World War II baby boom. If you're curious to know why this generation is called baby boomers, it is simply because of the post-World War II spike in the birth rate that began in 1946. Statistics show that 3 to 4 million babies were born each year from 1946 to 1964. After 1964, there were over 76.4 million baby boomers in the United States. You may be wondering, why did couples wait to have children till that specific time frame? Well, many people postponed marriage during World War II because their husbands were fighting in the war and simply because it was not a good time to have kids, not knowing how the world would be affected after the war. So once the war ended, young couples rushed to get married as they were eager to have children. Like any other generation, baby boomers divorced because of common issues such as lack of communication, lack of finances, infidelity, and much more. However, in the baby boomer generation was an individual's desire for independence, especially women. From 1946 to 1964, it was against societal norms for women to have children before marriage, so they rushed into marriage to have sex and children. Hence the baby boom. Women would marry cruel and abusive men because marriage was socially accepted during that time. Divorce rates increased once the expectation of marriage subsided in the 1970s. Women were free to work instead of being housewives, as there were increasing numbers of career opportunities available to them. Additionally, these couples divorced because they were simply unhappy. Rushing into marriage to have children can lead to divorce because partners don't know their spouses well enough. Baby boomers were the first cohort to divorce and remarry. The ailment we identified in this population is the rising divorce rates among older adults aged 55 and older. Between 1990 to 2010, divorce rates in older couples skyrocketed. According to Brown and Fenlin, roughly 1 in 4 divorces in 2010 occurred to persons aged 50 and older. Even though it is unclear if divorce rates are increasing in this specific generation today, my group and I wanted to find a way to prevent divorce in older couples altogether. During our intervention, we chose to use spiritual counseling as a way to keep spouses together. Studies have proven this method as effective in therapeutical and counseling settings. As I compare the baby boomer generation to other generations, you can determine your generation from the picture provided on your screen. When compared to other generations, baby boomers are said to be the wealthiest generation of them all. It is not shocking, as baby boomers put forth much dedication to their work. They wanted to make sure their children were well off. Now they have retirement benefits from Social Security and Medicare. The millennial generation, also referred to as Generation Y, are more competent in technology than baby boomers. The same goes for those in Generation Z. During the baby boomer generation, there was the expansion of the radio, computers, and mobile phones. But the relationship between technology and boomers is vastly different in comparison to our generation. We have smartphones, smart cars, and have eased into accessing the internet. In our generation, it is socially acceptable to have children before marriage. It was different from that of the baby boomers. Millennials take more time to get married than those of the baby boomer generation. As stated before, baby boomers rushed into marriage, which is one common reason for divorce in these older couples. Millennials take time to learn their partners. Baby boomers have higher divorce rates than any other generation, as you may know by now. However, there has been a dramatic decrease in divorce in our generation. Overall, the baby boomer generation is unique because of the number of babies born during that time and their high divorce rates. We're confident that spiritual counseling will be instrumental in the healing of older couples on the brink of divorce, and it will help them to communicate better and help them to find the happiness they seek.
Spirituality is a way where positive psychology influences on relationships. Spirituality is a type of counseling that aims to treat the person's soul, mind, and body by accessing their belief system so they can explore the areas in conflict in their life. Our specific cohort, we apply our intervention with this type of counseling is married couples from the baby boomer generation, adults ages 55 and older, which are the ones born after World War II between the years of 1947 and 1957, which are the ones who present the highest divorce rates compared to other generations. This intervention is focused on applying this aspect of positive psychology, which is spirituality and communication, to prevent the divorce rate. dealing with the person as a whole and assisting the client with their inner balance and a combination of all the dimensions of the self. It's an in-depth detailed process in comparison to other marriage therapy sessions. It includes a broader sense of the self, and because it uses a far more intimate investigative process. In dealing with this phenomena, we have less research than other type of counseling because it's relatively new, but the results so far are promising, and this offers a different perspective and an alternative that promotes the well-being and helps people face their life struggles. It emphasizes and strengths, couple strengths and not pathologies, in promoting individual potential, highlighting negative, the human potential and not highlighting the negative aspects of each relationship. It involves the spouses, the individual themselves, their spouse, and their families, because they're their social environment and they're affected by it. Therapists try to recognize that there's a negative connotation around older people, but they try to help them reach their full potential. So to tackle that problem and make them aware that's not the reality. Also, spiritual counselors understand there's limitations, and that they don't guarantee the outcome, but they offer the tools, and in this case, communication and other type of techniques, and so the couples can have those tools, and they can serve as guides in the process. The expectations we can have from questions are around the ego, go beyond the ego and complaints and symptoms in the marriage. It goes deeper, and it helps them express their feelings, compare their relationships status from the past to the future and what they're standing today. It also helps the counselor analyze as well. They use meditation and prayer in this type of session, so to channel the communication and help the future decision making. Decision making. Some questions we can ask are: why is the baby boomer generation the highest divorce rate? Are intervention dealing with spiritual phenomena something new, and what type of questions should the couples expect? Something Madeline can talk about next.
While divorce does have its negative side effects, there are some possible benefits to divorce in certain situations. So we know that positive psychology can, and its tools can greatly rebuild a struggling relationship to prevent divorce. And that's great for, couples that are struggling with communication, arguing. But certain situations call for the best immediate solution, especially if those situations become dangerous to individuals in the relationship or individuals that are like a part of the family unit of the relationship. So before we get into that, first I want to talk about what marital discord is. So when does a romantic relationship turn toxic or dangerous? This can be evaluated with the amount and intensity of the marital discord in a relationship. So, to put it in an operational sense, marital discord can be defined as the measure of the perceptions of disagreements between a couple. And disagreements can be physical altercations. It doesn't have to just be like an argument. It can be very intense depending on what it is. And the perceptions, so the perception of people like around the couple, like around the relationship, seeing the disagreements happen, because sometimes when couples are having disagreements, it can kind of be skewed, and they don't really understand the severity of the altercations that they're happening. So it's the measure of the perceptions of the disagreements between a couple from like an outside perspective, including the children's perspective. So this being said about marital discord, how can divorce be beneficial actually? So when divorce is beneficial, research by Paul Amado shows that marriages or relationships that have a high amount of marital discord, this can be things such as fighting, physical abuse, severe emotional abuse, neglect, can actually benefit greatly from a divorce, especially if it is at a very high intensity in the relationship. And this is due to the cause of the marital discord being separated from each other and the rest of like the family unit or the household. Children within these situations especially benefit if there's a high amount of marital discord, and because children typically get a lot of the fallout from that negative relationship, and they're impacted in many ways, and it can affect them down the line, long term, psychologically, emotionally, from that traumatic experience. And research by Amado shows that children in these family units display a greater amount of emotional and psychological well-being after the divorce in these high-intensity marital discord households. And an example would just be a child in a home where one parent physically abuses or threatens the other one. In that case, a divorce would be most beneficial for everyone involved, just to get everyone separated from each other so that there can be an actual chance to recover from that. So while positive psychology can help romantic relationships and marriages stay on track and bring people together, it is important to know when to leave a potentially dangerous situation or relationship. A lot of the times people don't know how to leave. They don't know the signs of when it is getting dangerous, so it is important to know these things so that you can prevent any trauma or any danger to come to those involved with that relationship.
Hi everyone, my name is Madeline and I hope you enjoyed the project that our group has put together for you guys. So for the next couple slides, I'm going to be asking a few questions to see if everybody was paying attention throughout the presentation. And it's a total of 8 questions, and I'll be giving you time in between each question so that you can answer them or try and answer them. And then at the end, I'll give you the answer with a little explanation. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so for question 1, the question is, what is divorce? So the answer for question number 1, what is divorce, is the legal separation of marriage. With that being said, if you're living with someone and you guys decide to break up, that is not considered a divorce. If you have kids with somebody and you guys decide to separate, that's also not considered a divorce. Divorce is only when you separate from someone who you have legally married. You get a marriage certificate and both of your names are on it. You guys are married. Once you guys separate, then that would be considered a divorce. My next question for you is, what are the 2 main causes for divorce? So the answer to this question is dissatisfaction and conflict. Dissatisfaction is when one or both partners are no longer satisfied in the relationship or with each other. And conflict is what can happen really with any relationship, but when it comes to a couple or your spouse or your partner, it's things like arguing, disagreements, miscommunication, trust, unfaithfulness, you fall out of love with the other person, sometimes maybe financial issues or things like that. But for the most part, those are the most common reasons for divorce. My third question for you guys is, how common is divorce? The answer to this question is 50% of marriages end in divorce. So to put this in a perspective for you guys to understand it a little bit better, imagine you work in an office with 20 married people. Assume that 10 of them, which is 50%, half of them are divorced. My fourth question for this pop quiz is, what is spiritual counseling? The answer to that question is, spiritual counseling is a type of treatment that strives to counsel people's souls, mind, and body, exploring belief systems and allows access to areas of faith which helps tackle the couple's conflict. Now I'm going to be asking some true or false questions. Question number 5. Baby boomers were born between the year 1980 to 1996. Is this statement true or false? So the answer to that question is false. Baby boomers were born during the year 1947 through 1957. The year 1980 through 1996 was the era of the millennials. The next true or false question is this one. Divorce rates have doubled since the baby boomer time. Is this statement true or false? The answer to that question is true. Divorce rates have doubled since the baby boomer time. That's because we've had a lot of infidelity, financial pressure, regrets about earlier decisions, desire for greater independence, large lack of communication, and rushing into marriage at a very young age. True or false? False. Conflicts in relationships could be disagreements, unfaithfulness, financial issues, and issues in communication. Is this statement true or false? The answer to this statement is true. It is very common in every type of relationship that you have that people have disagreements, financial issues, communication, and unfaithfulness with your partner, especially in a relationship, which is one of the main reasons or causes for people to get divorced. Our last and final question is true or false? Dissatisfaction in a relationship can mean reconnection in the relationship, lots of chemistry and intimacy, and that you are still in love. Is this statement true or is it false? The answer to this last question is false. Dissatisfaction in a relationship can mean a disconnect, not a reconnect. In the relationship, little to no chemistry, intimacy that is no longer present, whether that's physical or mental, and falling out of love with someone. We hope that everyone enjoyed our project. And if you have any questions, you can let us know. Thank you.